order the regular meeting of the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners for Tuesday, June 9th, 2015. Good morning, everyone. My name is Langdon Neal. I'm chairman of the board, and seated to my left is Commissioner Marisol Hernandez. First item on the agenda is the consideration of the agenda itself. Any additions, deletions? Hearing none, we'll move to item number 3, approval of the minutes, and we have 4 sets of minutes to approve today. First meeting minutes are for February 19th, 2014.
I move to approve.
Moved by Commissioner Hernandez. I'll second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Then we'll move to February 26, 2014.
Move for approval.
I'll second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
We'll move to the Canvas Board meeting. That was election. No, it wasn't. Election results meeting for April 23rd, 2015.
Move to approve.
I'll second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And finally, regular board meeting for May 9th, 2015. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'll second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
They're approved. I'll move to the executive director's report. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to let you know that right now we're trying to put together finances to pay for this last election. I've spoke to the budget director, informed us the money's in finance general, so that shouldn't be a problem. That's something we discussed earlier. We're also working on House Bill 1452. That's the language bill, where they're talking about it may impact that we may have the Polish language, and we already have a translator in house. So the county was talking to the sponsors of what they're doing, and we're putting together a bullet point of what we're doing. In fact, Jim and I would like to meet with Kelly and Jim Allen and go over that, so we can give it to the board members so you can see where we're at on this House Bill 1452. We're also reviewing, we're going to sit down with the warehouse. You know, Mr. Chairman, between the February and April election, we didn't have much time. We had to turn the equipment around right away, get it out there. We're going to review all the equipment. I know that we have a ton of booths that have been damaged for the last 2, we did in November, February, and April. So now we have to go over all the equipment. We're going to walk through the entire warehouse and review and see what needs to be worked on. So I wanted you to be aware of that. We just finished with a review of the maps. Bill Perez, Bill here. Bill did an excellent job of doing written descriptions of all the ward maps that's being approved right now. We've been asked for that written descriptions. City Council's asked for that and other maps. So we're trying to put all that together so we can feed it to City Council. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. And that's basically what we're doing. I hope to have a further detailed report at the next board meeting of other items that we're working on.
Okay. Fantastic.
I was away for about a week and a half, so I need to catch up.
Fine. Understood and well deserved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Ms. Bateman, anything from the Assistant Executive Director's Office?
Just to add to what Mr. Goff said, just the office is just working, finishing up the elections. Registration obviously is a year-round department, so they're just processing registrations that they receive daily. Warehouse is cleaning up after these past 2 elections. Steve Papulius from Dominion is going to take a trip out to the warehouse today to look around and, see what the warehouse looks like. So everything's just working well.
And Mr. Goff,
Yes, sir.
you referenced the voting booths. Are you going to take a global view of all our equipment,
All of our
and
equipment,
assess
Chairman.
its current status
Yes.
and address maintenance issues or replacement issues or upgrades or anything we need to moving into 2016?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. In fact, the agency did purchase new handicap booths, people with disabilities. So we're gonna review that and see what damages or anything on that, because they were brand new for this cycle of elections, so we're gonna
Of
go
course,
over
I was
everything.
referring to the voting equipment itself.
Well, that's the
You're
number
gonna
one
assess.
thing we're gonna do that assessment on. So
Okay, we'll look forward to that. Mr. Allen? Free for you. Were you through, Kelly?
I am finished, yes, thank you.
Right now, we're working with one of our vendors, printing, who's not involved in the canvas, has volunteered to analyze what we've done with our canvas in the past to try to find ways to see if we might be able to make that a little more efficient. So Jim Wecklander is looking at both the materials and the process and the files that we use for the mail canvas. We're going to be doing that much later this year. We're going to be putting it out to bid. But before we do, we're trying to review what we've done and see if we can extract a little more savings, perhaps in postage, perhaps make it a little more efficient and cost-effective. We're flipping all the website content. We're testing it behind the scenes. We had different departments review it. So the first up was voter registration, for example, and grace period registration for the March election. So we've got to make all these changes on all the different pages. We're working with the budget department. Lance mentioned about this past election, but also we're now moving into preparations for the 2016 budget. Just to expand or praise Bill Perez again, like Mr. Goff did, what we had were the original legal descriptions for the wards that were passed by the City Council in January 2012, and then the amendments to those. And they were both voluminous, and no one that we know of in the city had the combination of the two, where you had the amended final version. So there were two separate files. It took an immense amount of work ahead of the election just to do this for one ward. And Bill stepped up with the help of two people in community services to use this downtime with Sarita and Geneva down in community services. Went through the other 49 wards really rapidly. I mean, and this is some really detail-oriented, difficult work. So thank you again, Bill. It's great to have that done.
Great, excellent.
And jumping down the agenda, Kelly and I are exploring, or some of us are exploring, going downstate for the July 7th special primary. And we want to see, that'll be the first time that same-day registration will be in force. That'll be for the congressional seat that's open downstate. So I think some of us are making plans to be down there and either volunteer and or observe the processes going on there. So we've been invited by a couple of jurisdictions, and we're obviously anxious to see what works and what doesn't work ahead of March.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Allen?
No.
All right, we'll move to old business. Infrastructure projects, changes in election administration, evaluations and recommendations. So it's the evaluations part that we're going to be working on now. Electronic poll books. I assume we're going to do analysis of the election, the two elections, and
Right.
the good, the bad, and where we need to improve.
Right, we've already met with Mr. Ryan
Okay.
from ES&S and working on that.
Okay, I look forward to that. Judd, you work with staff on that?
You bet.
Okay, great. Voting equipment, that's part of the entire analysis that we're discussing. I don't think we have anything else that we need to discuss on that. Okay. Legislation, Jim, there's plenty of it out there. Anything you want to update us on?
Well, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Hernandez, the only election legislation that passed both houses is the bill that would adopt the State Board of Elections proposed calendar for special elections for vacancies in Congress. And, you know, that's an issue that's been around for a while, begging for legislative attention, and it finally got some attention by the General Assembly, and they did pass a calendar that's similar to the calendar that's now in place, but the calendar that's in place now for Representative Schock's vacancy was actually implemented by court order, as have other special elections in past years. But this is a calendar the state board has been proposing for a while and has been adopted. So I suspect that hopefully, if there are any special elections for congressional vacancies in the future, the state of Illinois and election jurisdictions in the state of Illinois will not have to go to federal court as they have had to do in the past in order to get a workable calendar in place. So that's a welcome piece of legislation. There was also a part of it that, again, had to do with ballots for military and overseas voters. And essentially, it deletes the requirement or provision in the state law that had provided for special write-in absentee ballots. And jurisdictions in Illinois really haven't used that in quite a while. So it was not really serving any purpose, so that was deleted as well. That was the only legislation that was passed by the May 30th deadline. There was a bill Mr. Goff alluded to earlier that dealt with foreign language ballots and election information. That bill did not move. It was a House Bill 1452. It was in third reading in the Senate, and Senator Harmon elected not to move the bill and requested that the jurisdictions get together and see what, if anything, could be done in terms of providing additional language assistance to other language assistant groups in the state. So I'm sure those discussions will take place, and it's possible there may be some legislative action in the November veto session. Of course, there's always possible there may be legislation during the extended special session, but I don't suspect that's going to be the case. I think they have bigger priorities to deal with right now. So that's where we are as far as legislation.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Scanlon? All right, under new business, Mr. Scanlon, do you want to address this? The voter registration
right.
system design and implementation agreement?
There's a recommendation from Laurel to consider a change order for the May 14th, 2013 voting registration design and implementation agreement system. As you recall, the board approved the contract in May of 2013 for the design, testing, and implementation of a new voter registration system. And much of that registration system has been in place and has been used very successfully. The proposed change order would take the work that's been done as part of that agreement and take it to a new level, in that there is consideration being given to an online election judge application system. And as part of that online election judge application, it would be necessary to be able to interact with the voter registration system. So there has to be a voter registration component
Yes.
to this application. And so the change order in the amount of $25,000 is to conduct an assessment for the testing, tuning, and integration recommendations and future enhancements of the VRXG, which is the voter registration system, so that it can be used in and to complement the proposed election, online election judge application.
So we would be able to use it for this upcoming election?
I'm not sure if the deadline is for the next election, as far as the online election judge application. But the work on the voter registration side can be done now.
Okay.
Who's preparing the online election judge program?
It's a combination between our staff and our contractor, SKU, who's been working on the VR system.
Okay, so this contract?
Yes,
Okay, so they'll have both sides of the
Yes, they will.
equation?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
and they know both sides, so it'll work out real well, I think,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. All right, is there a motion to approve the change order for an amendment to the contract with SKU Corporation in the amount of $25,000?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Hernandez. I'll second. Further discussion, hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
It is approved. Legal status report, Mr. Scanlon?
Mr. Chairman, there's one item. The Rose case, Rose versus Board of Election Commissioners, this is a case that arose out of the February 2015 municipal election. It was started out as a judicial review for a candidate for Alderman in the 7th Ward. They filed also filed in the United States District Court. The United States District Court dismissed the complaint, and the candidate has appealed. It's now in the 7th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals. The appellants requested and were granted an extension of time to file their appellant's brief, which is now due July 20th, and the brief of the appellees, which would be the board, and also the state of Illinois, is now due August 19th.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I have to report.
All right. We have no financial report, so at this time, we'll...
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, before we go to public comment.
Yes.
I just wanted to add, and I left my book here, Laurel, our purchasing agent, went to a vendor fair. Would you explain the city vendor fair? And this was the first time this agency had been, and I'm very proud of Laurel taking the lead on this and having the Board of Election being represented there.
Great.
So, as Lynn mentioned, I was here last Wednesday, June 3rd, the City of Chicago and Cook County Vendor Fair opened, and then hosted over 100 different attendees from throughout the city, state, and regional, as well as assist agencies and other minority organizations that actually hosted the event for vendors to attend to learn about municipalities' opportunities for bid as well as other options. It was also a great place for networking. There were some great workshops that were offered to these attendees, as well as an opportunity, more importantly, for our agency to be part of the other sister agencies as well as the city and the exposure. We had about 40 vendors come up to our table. We're very interested. We also had registration applications on hand for judges, for future judges, as well as voter registration applications on hand as well. It was well attended, and more importantly, as I stated, it's, again, exposure for us to be put out there to let them know that we too are here, and we have solicitation opportunities. I put together a buying plan that was presented to them that was part of the whole consolidation of multiple agencies that are in the City of Chicago's published book. So I gave a copy to Mr. Goff, and I'll be happy to share or extend this copy to you as well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay, I'll open the floor to any public comment for the day. Ms. Wilson, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board and staff. First of all, I want to congratulate the board and staff on a really well-run election. This past election, as difficult as it was, I think that Chicago stands out among boards of elections around the country as the most efficient and really fraud-proof election in the United States.
Thank you.
Having said that, we had an unusually low turnout again in our election. And they now agree with me in Springfield that we really have to do some civics education to help people understand why they need to be engaged in voting and what it means. So I would submit to the board that prior to the next election, we really need to explain what each office to be elected means to an ordinary citizen. And I call it like a civic, voting is a civic opportunity, but it's also a way of connecting your voice to those who are elected. And we need to do it, I think, through the city colleges. You have 7 city colleges, 26 colleges and universities in the Chicago area. And then the high school students, and then beyond that, having civics education kind of meetings that we put online in the 77 Chicago communities to really get people to see how do you get your neighborhood parks, who runs that, who's in charge of the potholes, really, who's in charge of making certain kinds of decisions about policing, cameras and no cameras. And I think that if we do that between now and the election, we should see an increase in voter enthusiasm and voter turnout, moving beyond the personality driven kind of races. And so if you have an uninspired personality, people just say, well, I'm not voting. I think we can drive them towards the issues. And one other thing that Rainbow Push is doing at its convention is beginning to focus on the pushing for a constitutional right to vote, so that we have a standardized voting process across the country to move against the states' rights movement, where every state and every municipality has a different way of voting and placing barriers to elections. We have same day. Other states, they won't even let you vote early. And so those are some things that I think that as we move forward and get better, that we should consider.
Thank you, Wilson. That's certainly a very, very important point you raised. It's certainly something that this board is focused on, the civics education and youth engagement, and doing what we can in a very modest way to get voter turnout improved and get our electorate engaged. So that your ideas are spectacular, and we'll continue to work with you and outreach you and with you to see how we can improve the things that you have put on the floor today. Anyone else?
Good morning. Good to see both of you again.
Good morning.
Sharon Maroney from Right Now. I'm speaking in behalf of Defend the Vote. I have 2 issues that I'm going to be bringing forth today. One of the questions that I had is regarding the integration of the electronic poll books with the voting system in the last election. And as I understood it, the electronic poll book was able to work with the election equipment to produce the correct ballots. Is that correct? Did I get that correctly?
No, not the correct ballot. Go ahead.
The electronic poll books that we used in early voting were able to activate the ballot style on the card. The electronic poll books that we used in the polling place had no such capacity or function. So the only time that it worked was during early voting, and it was a huge success in that in the past they would read the ballot, the poll workers in early voting would read the ballot style, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, and then have to key it into the hat. And invariably there would be some errant keying in, and then the voter might have the unfortunate situation of waiting until after they voted, and they said, you know, I don't think I'm in the 5th state rep district or the 4th state rep district. And it would the ballot was already cast at that point. And this is not something unique to Chicago. This happens with boundary shifts all over the country. And so we took that out, we took the chance out.
The human error.
The human error is
Yeah.
removed now.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have any integration with the voting equipment. It's putting on the card instead of using the hat, using the laptop to say select ballot style 51 or ballot style 14, whatever. And then we're getting voters the correct ballot style. So that has virtually eliminated a past problem, and it's been very successful.
So it actually programs the card, and then the card is to actually
It
generate
tells
ballot?
the card it tells it puts on the card which ballot style to select.
Okay. And that was a suggestion that was only done in Chicago, if I remember your meeting correctly. It's not, all the other systems do not integrate these two, different election systems.
Well, we have our own self-designed election system. So we really can't compare it to anyone else.
Yeah.
We've designed this system over the last 10 years ourselves and built it, so to speak.
This is off the voter registration.
The whole thing, I mean, from the election equipment, the integration of the paper ballot, the electronic equipment, the merging of results, the transmission of results, now we've built this like building blocks to create our own voting system. So it really can't be compared to any other system. I mean, we have close cousins from the county side, but even there, we differ in some aspects.
Yes, you do. That it actually is not a lawful use of the system because you cannot integrate two voting systems, even if it's just the poll book, together. And I would challenge this board, because we're going to be looking into this further, whether or not it, and there will be a new system information coming up, new certifications in advance of 2016.
Sure.
And we will be challenging that the integration of the ESS with the Dominion voting system is not lawful, because it then falls under the category of a voting system, of a blended voting system.
Ms. Maroney?
That hasn't happened at all.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, there's been some really loose use of the word integration right here. To suggest that these two systems are in any way integrated as far as the voting equipment goes is an amazing leap. Secondly, the ES&S equipment is the equipment that I referenced that is used on election day. It does not do any card activation at all. Our laptops that we use in early voting, non-ES&S equipment, does activation. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's a fact, it's true.
It's
Mr.
the
Maroney,
same.
I can just tell you, we welcome any challenge you have to our equipment. Never has any challenge been sustained by the courts or the administrative bodies that review us. Our accuracy of our election results are almost perfect. And so, welcome to it. We're ready for you.
Well, it's just the concern is that the two systems are not supposed to be blended together, and if they're going to be blended together in whatever way the communication director wishes to reference it, then it needs to be properly processed through the State Board of Elections and be given an interim approval. And that is the concern that Defend the Vote has, is that all the voting equipment go through those processes.
I think it does, so that's...
Okay, great,
Yeah.
thank you. And my second point that I wanted to, I'm going to take off my hat now and put on the Republican Party concerns that we've had. I came here to the last meeting, and I have this letter here from Chairman Del Mar. I'd like to approach the board and give it to you.
Mhm.
This is the letter that was delivered in April and responded to by Mr. Goff. And at that point, Mr. Goff committed that immediately after the election, he would be responding to Aaron Del Mar. It's now been over 2 months, and we've had nothing but silence. And Chairman Del Mar is quite concerned about the status of the election judges, and we are moving immediately into our recruitment process, and we would like to have the issues that were raised addressed. And we also, since I'm going to be running that program, we need to have somebody designated that will respond to my phone calls and to my outreaches. We still do not have a list of judges that served, which was denied by this board, and it's currently under investigation by the Attorney General's office through the FOIA department, and there's other issues as well. So we're very concerned that there are not bipartisan election judge panels, and we've discussed this at multiple meetings, and I'm going to be here at every meeting until we get the representation and we get the answers to our questions about why we multiply submitted judges and those judges were never contacted or placed in the boards. And then they placed Democrats and also unaffiliated judges for many, many polling places. Hundreds of them were not represented by bipartisan election judges, even though there were a sufficient supply of judges available.
Mr. Scanlon?
Mr. Chairman, Joan Agnew has been
Yes.
working
Yes.
on a response to that letter because the letter raised issues with regard to the selection, appointment, and confirmation of judges, which Joan has been working with staff on for a while. So she was working on that response. Her time and attention got diverted because she was then responding to Ms. Maroney's request to the Attorney General to review certain freedom of information request issues. And so Ms. Agnew got diverted to addressing those issues, which have been addressed and which the Attorney General has indicated they're closing the matter. So now I know Ms. Agnew's again working on the response to Chairman Dilmar's letter, and we hope to have something soon.
Thank
I
you.
would correct that the matter is not being closed by the Attorney General. I'm responding to it, and so I'm not sure why they would have indicated to you they were closing it when they've indicated to me that I have until next week to finish responding to it.
Well, I'm referring to a letter
Yes, I know, but
that the
that's
Attorney
submitted.
General issued.
Yes, that was submitted some weeks ago, but it lacked documentation, so the Attorney General then asked Joan to include the documentation, and that was just responded to on Friday.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking of the letter that the Attorney General sent indicating the matter was closed. Now, if there's something else going on, so be it, but that's what I was referring to.
Yeah, I haven't received that letter, so I'm not aware. I know that the matter that we're talking about relating to the election judges is still open.
Well, we'll respond to the letter, Chairman Dilmar's letter. We'll do so. He certainly deserves our response.
Yes, he does.
And as far as designating a point person, we'll take that under advisement. I just, for the record, we've spent a good amount of time, I know not to your satisfaction, but literally hundreds, if not thousands of hours addressing your concerns. So we'll continue to do so, but for the record, it's not like we have not been paying attention to you. I know you feel you have not been satisfactorily responded to, and that's fine. But it has been quite burdensome on our staff, especially during the election period. But we'll continue slugging these things through. Okay, anyone else for us today? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. Are
Good
there
morning.
any committees or projects that you appoint the public to volunteer on?
We have many, and your name, I'm sorry?
Ruth Walker.
Ruth Washevitz? Okay. Yes, we have many community outreach seminars or not functions in which we seek the public's advice. And we may have some things coming up during this. I think we will have some things coming up prior to the next election. In fact, we'll be using this summer and late fall to do some additional community outreach. So maybe if you want to give your name to Ms. Bateman here, we do have a community outreach person in charge of that, and we'd love to get your, if this is what you're saying to me, we'd love to get your input, advice, counsel, because we are a collaborative agency with our voters. Yeah, so definitely give us your contact information. Okay, anything else to come? Oh, we do, I think, have a need for an executive session to discuss personnel matters and potential litigation? Or do we have potential litigation?
Personnel matters and for possible approval of prior closed meetings.
Yes.
So I move that we go into closed session.
I'll second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
I will, I promise.
We return to open session, and the board did take action in executive session, which requires a vote in open session. Commissioner Hernandez.
I move that the need for confidentiality still exists as to the written minutes of the closed executive sessions held on April 30th, 2013, May 14th, 2013, August 20th, 2013, September 26th, 2013, October 8th, 2013, November 12th, 2013, January 14, 2014, I'm sorry, not that one, I'll delete that one. September 24, 2014, October 21st, 2014, November 11, 2014, December 8th, 2014, and January 26, 2015. And that the written minutes of all other closed executive sessions shall be available for public inspection.
I'll second that motion. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
That'll be the order. That concludes our agenda for today. The board accept a motion to recess till our next regular board meeting.
June 23rd and 23rd?
June 23rd?
Yes.
June 23rd, 2015.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Mary Ann, this is your file here.
Oh,
Yes, Jill.